Admiral Park Daeho stood on the bridge of his space station and looked out at the stars. The defense station Sejong floated quietly in the darkness between two human colonies. For 20 years, Park had watched over this corner of space. Nothing exciting ever happened here. The bridge was peaceful. Only 3 officers worked at their stations. The lights were dim and comfortable. Outside the windows, Park could see the distant glow of New Busan Colony. Thousands of families lived there in safety. They grew food, built homes, and raised children. They never worried about war or danger. "Sir, we have the morning report," said Lieutenant Kim Tae-young. He was a young officer with bright eyes and a quick smile. "All systems are normal. No problems anywhere." Park nodded. "Good. Any messages from Earth Command?" "Just the usual supply schedules, sir. Nothing important." This was how every day started for Park. Reports of nothing happening. Messages about boring supplies. Updates on farming and mining operations. It was the life of a peacekeeping commander in human space. Very quiet. Very safe. Very dull. Park was 55 years old. His hair was turning gray at the sides. He had served in the Terran Defense Fleet for 30 years, but he had never fought in a real battle. Humans had been expanding into space for over a century, and they had never met hostile aliens. Some people wondered if aliens even existed. The defense station Sejong was not built for war. It had some weapons, but they were old and simple. The station was mostly for watching space traffic and helping ships with problems. Park commanded 12 patrol ships. They were fast but lightly armed. Their main job was to rescue people and deliver supplies. Dr. Kim Nari was working in her laboratory on the research ship Hanbok, 3 light years away from Station Sejong. She was studying soil samples from a new planet. The soil was rich and good for growing crops. Soon, human families would move there and build another peaceful colony. Nari was 38 years old. She had spent 15 years studying planets and looking for places where humans could live. She loved her work. Every new world was like a puzzle to solve. What plants could grow there? What animals might live there? How could humans build homes without hurting the environment? Dr. Kim called her assistant. "We found something interesting in sample 47. Nari looked through her microscope. The soil contained tiny crystals that glowed with soft blue light. "Beautiful," she whispered. "I wonder what makes them glow like that." The Hanbok was one of 50 research ships exploring new worlds. Each ship carried scientists, geologists, biologists, and engineers. They spent months studying planets before humans moved there. Safety was always the most important thing. Captain Lee Soo-bin commanded the patrol ship Baekdu near the edge of human space. She was only 29 years old, but she was already trusted with an important job. Her ship watched the border areas where humans had never been before. If aliens existed, they would probably be found in these distant places. Soo-bin had joined the fleet because she wanted adventure. She dreamed of discovering new worlds and meeting alien friends. But after 3 years of patrol duty, she had found nothing but empty space and dead rocks. "Captain," said her navigator, "we're approaching the Kepler 442 system. Should we do the standard scan?" "Yes, let's take a look," Soo-bin replied. "Maybe today we'll find something interesting." The Baekdu moved slowly through the darkness. Its sensors reached out like invisible fingers, touching every planet and asteroid. The system had 7 planets, but none of them could support human life. It was another empty place in an empty universe. Far away on Earth, engineer Choi Min-ho was working late in his laboratory. The building was quiet except for the hum of computers and the scratching of his pen on paper. Min-ho was designing new engines for spaceships. His engines would be faster and use less fuel than anything humans had ever built. Min-ho was 42 years old. He had been working on engine design for 20 years. His dream was to build an engine that could move ships instantly from one star to another. People said it was impossible, but Min-ho believed in his ideas. "If I can bend space correctly," he muttered to himself, "distance becomes meaningless. A ship could be here one moment and there the next moment." His calculations covered 6 large boards on the wall. Numbers and equations filled every inch of space. Most engineers said his math was too complicated and too dangerous, but Minho kept working. He believed that one day, humans would need very fast ships. The defense doctrine of humanity was simple: explore peacefully, defend if necessary, never attack first. This policy had guided human expansion for generations. Humans built colonies, slowly and carefully. They respected the environment of every world they settled. They prepared defenses but hoped never to use them. Admiral Park remembered his training at the Fleet Academy. His instructors had taught him that the best victory was the battle you never had to fight. A good commander, they said, keeps the peace through strength, not through violence. The human colonies were connected by a network of communication relays. Messages could travel from one end of human space to the other in just a few hours. If danger ever appeared, every colony would know about it quickly. But in more than a century of expansion, the network had only carried messages about good news: new colonies, scientific discoveries, successful harvests. Dr. Nari finished her work for the day and walked to the observation deck of the Hanbok. She liked to watch the stars before going to sleep. Each point of light might be a sun with planets around it. Some of those planets might have life. Nari dreamed of meeting friendly aliens who could teach humans about the universe. Captain Subin completed her patrol and set course for the next system. Space was so big and empty that her small ship felt like a tiny boat on an endless ocean. Sometimes she wondered if humans were alone in the universe. The thought made her feel lonely but also special. Engineer Minho finally went home to his small apartment. His wife had left dinner for him in the kitchen. She was already asleep. Minho ate quietly and looked out the window at the city lights. Millions of people lived on Earth in peace and safety. They trusted the fleet to protect them. Minho wanted to make sure they would always be safe. Admiral Park made his final check of the station before going to bed. All systems were normal. All patrols had reported in safely. The colonies were quiet and secure. Tomorrow would be another peaceful day in human space. None of them knew that something was watching them from the darkness between the stars. Something that had been studying human colonies for months. Something that had made a terrible mistake about what kind of people humans really were. The Watchers saw peaceful farms and quiet research stations. They saw lightly armed patrol ships and defensive space stations. They saw a civilization that seemed soft and weak. They decided that humans would be easy to conquer. They were wrong. Far beyond the edge of human space, a massive fleet was already moving toward the colonies. 847 warships, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. The fleet carried 400,000 alien warriors who had conquered 17 different species. But Admiral Park slept peacefully on his station. Dr. Nari dreamed of glowing crystals in alien soil. Captain Subin piloted her ship through the gentle darkness between stars. Engineer Minho worked on equations for engines that could cross the galaxy in moments. The quiet time was almost over. Soon, everything would change. Commander Gethmori stood in the war room of his flagship and studied the holographic display. The image showed human space with all its colonies marked in soft blue light. 12 star systems, 43 worlds, millions of weak creatures who called themselves humans. Gethmori was 8 feet tall with gray skin and 4 arms. His species, the Vorthak, had ruled a large part of the galaxy for 300 years. They conquered weak races and made them into slaves. It was the natural way of things. The strong ruled and the weak served. Report, Gethmori commanded. His voice was deep and harsh like grinding metal. Sub-Commander Yethkol bowed low. The human scout patterns are predictable, Commander. Their patrol ships travel the same routes every week. Their defense stations have minimal weapons. We count only 300 combat vessels in their entire fleet. Gethmori clicked his teeth together. It was a sound of satisfaction. 300 ships against our 847. They cannot possibly resist us. The Vorthak had been watching human space for 6 months. Their invisible scout ships had mapped every colony and counted every defense platform. What they saw made them confident. The humans seemed more interested in growing food and studying rocks than in building weapons. Their largest ship is less than half the size of our smallest destroyer, reported another officer. Their weapons are simple projectile and energy. Systems. Nothing that can penetrate our shields. Gethamori had conquered 17 species during his long military career. Some had fought bravely but uselessly. Others had surrendered immediately when they saw his fleet. The humans would probably surrender. They looked like the surrendering type. "Show me their military installations," Gethamori ordered. The hologram changed to show detailed images of human defense stations. They looked more like scientific laboratories than military bases. Gardens grew inside transparent domes. The weapons were small and old-fashioned. Many of the stations seemed to be conducting research rather than preparing for war. "Pathetic," Gethamori muttered. "They build flower gardens, where they should build weapon factories." 3 days later, Captain Subin was conducting a routine patrol near the Kepler 442 system, when her sensors detected something unusual. A small object was drifting in space, damaged and leaking atmosphere. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Lee Subin of the Terran patrol ship Bekdu," she broadcast. "Do you need assistance?" No response came back. Subin moved her ship closer. The object was clearly artificial, but it looked unlike any human ship she had ever seen. Its hull was dark purple with strange, curved lines. Parts of it were broken and sparking with electricity. "Prepare the rescue pod," Subin ordered. "Someone might be alive in there." Her crew found one survivor inside the alien ship. He was unconscious and badly injured. His species was completely unknown to humans. Gray skin, 4 arms, and a face that looked like it was designed for warfare rather than friendship. Dr. Nari received an emergency call from Captain Subin. "Doctor, we have a situation. I found an injured alien. We need xenobiological support, immediately." Nari felt her heart racing with excitement and fear. First contact with an alien species was the moment scientists had dreamed about for generations. But the alien was hurt, possibly dying. There might not be time for proper procedures. The Hanbok rushed to meet the Bekdu. Nari worked frantically to prepare her medical equipment. She had studied theoretical alien biology, but she had never treated a real alien patient. Everything would be guesswork. When Nari first saw the Vorthak warrior, she felt a chill of fear. Even unconscious and injured, he looked dangerous. His hands ended in sharp claws, his teeth were pointed like knives. This was not the friendly alien she had imagined meeting someday. "Can you save him?" asked Subin. "I'll try," Nari replied. "But I don't know anything about his biology. I might accidentally kill him while trying to help." For 12 hours, Nari worked to keep the alien alive. She gave him oxygen and fluids. She stopped his bleeding and stabilized his broken bones. Slowly, his vital signs improved. Finally, his eyes opened. The Vorthak warrior looked around the medical bay with confusion and pain. When he saw Nari and Subin, his eyes widened with what looked like fear. "Where am I?" he whispered in broken human language. "You're safe," Nari said gently. "We found you in space. Your ship was badly damaged. We're trying to help you." The alien struggled to sit up. "Help? You are humans." "Yes, we are humans. My name is Nari. This is Subin. What's your name?" The alien stared at them for a long moment. Then he began to laugh. It was not a happy sound. It was the bitter laugh of someone who knows. "A terrible joke. My name is Kethvar. I was a scout for the Dominion fleet." He looked directly at Nari with desperate eyes. "You saved my life, but you cannot save your own people." Subin stepped forward. "What do you mean? What's happening?" Kethvar tried to stand but fell back onto the medical bed. "The Armada is coming. 800 ships, 400,000 warriors. Commander Gethamori thinks your people are weak, easy to conquer." "Conquer?" Nari felt ice in her stomach. "We don't want to fight anyone. We just want to live in peace." "Peace." Kethvar laughed again, but this time it sounded sad. "My people do not understand peace. We only understand strength and weakness. Gethamori sees your small ships and quiet colonies. He thinks you are weak." Subin activated her communication system. "I need to contact Admiral Park immediately." While Subin sent her urgent message, Nari continued talking to the alien. "How long do we have before this fleet arrives?" They were 3 days behind me when my ship was damaged. Maybe 4 days now, maybe less. Kethavar closed his eyes. You should run. Take your people and run far away. The Vorthak do not show mercy to the weak. We won't run, Subin said quietly. This is our home. Kethavar opened his eyes and looked at her with something like respect. Then you will die bravely. That is good. But you will still die. Admiral Park received Subin's message while he was eating breakfast. The words made him forget about food. First contact with aliens. An approaching invasion fleet. A warning. From an enemy who had become a friend. Park immediately sent emergency messages to all human colonies and defense stations. He also sent a priority communication to Earth Command. But Earth was 20 light-years away. Even at faster-than-light speeds, it would take days for help to arrive. Sir, asked Lieutenant Kim, should we begin evacuation procedures? Park looked out at the peaceful colonies around his station. Millions of people were starting their daily lives. Children were going to school. Farmers were tending their crops. Scientists were conducting experiments. None of them knew that death was approaching from space. No evacuation, Park decided. We prepare to defend our homes. Over the next 2 days, the human defense fleet took positions around their colonies. Admiral Park's 12 patrol ships were joined by vessels from other systems. In total, they gathered 298 combat ships. It was not enough. Everyone knew it was not enough. Commander Gethmori was pleased when his scouts reported the human response. Less than 300 ships had gathered to defend their colonies. Some of the human vessels were obviously civilian ships with weapons hastily attached. It was almost insulting. They are either very brave or very stupid, observed Sub-Commander Yethkol. Bravery and stupidity often look the same, replied Gethmori. Prepare the surrender demand. We will give them one chance to submit peacefully. The Vorthak fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of human space. 847 warships appeared in perfect formation. Each ship was massive and heavily armed. They looked like metal predators hunting for prey. Admiral Park watched the enemy fleet appear on his sensors. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. The alien ships were larger and more powerful than anything in the human fleet. But Park had sworn an oath to defend his people. He would keep that oath even if it meant death. The surrender demand came 30 minutes later. Commander Gethmori's voice filled the communication channels of every human ship and colony. I am Commander Gethmori of the Vorthak Dominion. Your space now belongs to us. Your people will serve us as slaves. Surrender immediately and some of you will be allowed to live. Resist, and all of you will die. You have 1 day to decide. Admiral Park looked around his bridge at his officers. They were young men and women who had trained for this moment, but hoped it would never come. Now it was here, and they were ready. Send. A response, Park ordered. Tell Commander Gethmori that we need 24 hours to consider his offer. It was not true. Park had already made his decision, but he needed time to position his ships and prepare his defenses. Every hour might save thousands of lives. Commander Gethmori received the human response and smiled. It was exactly what he had expected. The humans were stalling for time, hoping for rescue that would never come. They would surrender tomorrow, or he would destroy them. But Gethmori was growing impatient. His warriors had been traveling for weeks. They wanted to fight, to show these humans what happened to species that made the Vorthak wait. Commander, suggested Yethkol, perhaps we should give them a demonstration. Show them what our weapons can do. Gethmori considered this. A small demonstration would convince the humans to surrender quickly. The moment Admiral Park's message ended, something changed in human space. It was invisible but real, like the moment before lightning strikes. Across 12 star systems, millions of people stopped what they were doing and looked up at the stars. On the farming colony of New Busan, children playing in the fields saw their parents suddenly running toward the communication centers. Workers in the rice paddies dropped their tools and gathered around emergency broadcasts. The cheerful morning sounds of a peaceful world became quiet and grim. Dr. Kim Nari stood in the medical bay of the Hanbok, watching the injured Vorthak warrior Kethvar. When the news came about Arirang Station, his face changed. The bitter mockery disappeared, replaced by something that looked like fear. "What have you done?" Kethvar whispered. "You were supposed to surrender. Why did Gethmori destroy the station?" Nari's voice was very quiet. 3,000 people lived on that station, families, children. They were mining workers, not soldiers. Kethvar struggled to sit up on the medical bed. "Gethmori wanted to show your people that resistance is useless. It is how the Vorthak always begin conquest. We destroy something important to break your spirit." "He destroyed the wrong thing," Nari said. Captain Subin entered the medical bay. Her young face looked older now, marked by a new hardness. "Doctor, we're receiving new orders. The Bekdu has been reassigned to Combat Squadron 7. "Combat Squadron?" Nari looked confused. "The Bekdu is a patrol ship." Subin smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Not anymore. Check your computer, Doctor. Look up the real specifications of the Bekdu." Nari activated her tablet and accessed the ship's technical database. What she saw made her gasp. Hidden beneath the Bekdu's civilian exterior were weapon systems she had never imagined. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, shield generators powerful enough to stop battleship-class weapons. "I don't understand," Nari said. "This says the Bekdu can fight ships 10 times its size." "Every human ship can," Subin replied. "We just never told anyone, including most of our own people." Kethvar was listening to their conversation. His 4 eyes grew wide with disbelief. "Impossible. Our scouts watched your ships for months. We know your capabilities." Subin looked at the alien with something like pity. "You saw what we wanted you to see. Tell me, Kethvar, when your people build a farming colony, do you also build hidden weapon factories?" "No. Farming colonies are for farming." "Exactly. That's why you don't understand humans. When we build a farming colony, we also build the tools to defend it. When we build a research station, we also build the weapons to protect our research. When we build a mining operation, we also build the means to fight for our minerals." Engineer Choi Min-ho was working frantically in his laboratory on Earth. When the emergency alert reached him, the theoretical engines he had been designing for 20 years suddenly became the most important project in human space. "Sir," called his assistant, "Admiral Chen is on the priority line." Min-ho picked up the communication device. "Admiral, I assume you're calling about the quantum displacement drive. How quickly can you build them, Choi?" "I've never built a working prototype. The calculations are incredibly complex. One mistake could destroy an entire ship." "How quickly, Choi?" Min-ho looked at his equations covering the walls. 20 years of work. Theories that most people said were impossible. But 3,000 people had just died and more would die unless he could give humanity an advantage. 72 hours, he said. "I can have the first units ready in 72 hours. Do it." Across human space, similar conversations were taking place. On the agricultural world of New Sejong, farming equipment was being converted into massive railguns. The same machines that had been planting crops were now manufacturing projectiles that could punch through starship armor. The mining operation at Kepler Station revealed its true purpose. The massive excavation equipment that had been digging tunnels was actually manufacturing facilities for spacecraft. In 6 hours, the mining station had produced 50 combat vessels and was working on 50 more. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching his fleet grow larger by the hour. Ships that had been marked as civilian transport and research vessel were revealing their true nature. His fleet of 298 combat ships had become over 800 vessels in less than 12 hours. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Kim, "the orbital platforms around New Busan have armed their defensive systems." Park nodded. The agricultural research stations orbiting human colonies were actually massive fortress platforms. Their atmospheric processors were really planetary defense cannons capable of destroying incoming fleets. "What about the deep space monitoring stations?" "All operational, sir. The early warning network is fully active. The deep space monitoring stations were humanity's greatest secret. For 50 years, humans had been building invisible sensor networks throughout their region of space. Every ship that entered human territory was tracked and analyzed. The Vorthak fleet had been watched since the moment it arrived. But the sensors did more than just watch. They were also equipped with weapons. Thousands of automated defense platforms floated in the darkness between stars, waiting for orders to attack. Dr. Nari was studying the data from Kethavar's damaged ship when she made an important discovery. The Vorthak technology was advanced in some ways, but it had critical weaknesses. Their shield generators operate on a rotating frequency, she told Captain Subin. If we can match the rotation, we can phase our weapons right through their defenses. How? Do we match the rotation? Your ship's sensors can detect the frequency pattern. It takes about 30 seconds to analyze and match. Once we have it, their shields become useless. Kethavar heard this conversation and felt sick. How do you know so much about our technology? Nari looked at him with sad eyes. Because we've been preparing for this day for 50 years. Every piece of alien technology we could find, we studied. Every possible enemy we could imagine, we planned to fight. But you seemed so peaceful. We are peaceful. We choose to be peaceful. But we are not helpless. Commander Gethmori was growing concerned. His scouts were reporting strange activity throughout human space. Civilian ships were disappearing and being replaced by military vessels. Mining stations were revealing weapon systems. Agricultural colonies were deploying orbital defenses. Sub-Commander Yethkol explained these reports. I cannot explain them, Commander. Either our intelligence was completely wrong, or the humans have been lying to us. Gethmori studied the new information. The human fleet was larger than his scouts had reported. Much larger. But it was still smaller than his own force. The Vorthak had 847 warships, each one built for conquest and destruction. We attack at dawn, Gethmori decided. Before they can prepare any more surprises. Engineer Minho had not slept for 48 hours. His hands shook from exhaustion as he installed the first quantum displacement drive into the human battleship Teguk. The mathematics had to be perfect. One small error would tear the ship apart at the atomic level. Sir, the installation is complete, reported his assistant. But we won't know if it works until we test it. There's no time for testing, Minho replied. Admiral Park needs these drives in 18 hours. The quantum displacement drive was humanity's secret weapon. If it worked, human ships could travel instantly across vast distances. They could appear anywhere in space without warning, but if it failed, the ships would be destroyed. Admiral Park received the report from Minho and made a difficult decision. He would test the new technology in battle against the Vorthak fleet. It was dangerous, but humanity needed every advantage. Order all ships to prepare for combat operations, Park commanded. The enemy expects us to fight like a traditional fleet. We're going to show them something they've never seen before. Captain Subin was briefing her squadron commanders when the final orders arrived. Her small patrol ship Bekdu had been joined by 47 other civilian vessels. Each ship looked harmless on the outside, but carried enough firepower to destroy a battleship. Remember, Subin told her captains, the Vorthak think we're weak and afraid. Let them keep thinking that until the moment we strike. Dr. Nari had finished analyzing every piece of data from Kethavar's ship. She now understood how Vorthak weapons worked, how their shields operated, and how their sensors tracked targets. This information was being uploaded to every human ship. Your people have no idea what they're facing, she told Kethavar. The Vorthak warrior looked at her with growing respect. Neither did we. You are not what you appear to be. No species ever is. That's the first rule of survival in a dangerous universe. Across human space, families were saying goodbye to loved ones who served in the fleet. But there was no panic, no desperate fear. These people had lived their entire lives knowing this day might come. They were prepared. Children who had grown up on peaceful farming worlds understood that their parents' grain silos were really missile factories. Students at research universities knew that their professors' laboratories contained weapon designs. Workers at mining operations realized that their excavation equipment was actually shipbuilding machinery. Humanity had spent a century building a civilization that looked peaceful and defenseless. Admiral Park stood in the command center of his flagship Taeguk as the final preparations began. Around him, officers worked with calm efficiency. There was no panic, no desperate shouting. These people had trained for this moment their entire lives, even though they had hoped it would never come. "Sir, all squadron leaders report ready," announced Lieutenant Kim. "The quantum displacement drives are online and functioning." Park nodded. The new engines from Choi Min-ho had been installed on 200 ships in just 48 hours. It was an incredible achievement, but they had never been tested in real combat. Today would prove whether human engineering could match human courage. "What about our Vorthak friend?" Park asked. "Kethavar is still with Dr. Kim Nari on the Hanbok. He's been very helpful with intelligence about enemy tactics." Kethavar had indeed been helpful, though he seemed increasingly worried about what would happen to him after the battle. The Vorthak Dominion did not forgive those who helped their enemies. But Nari had promised him protection, and Kethavar was beginning to understand that humans kept their promises. Captain Subin was reviewing her attack plan one final time when her communication system activated. It was a message from her younger brother who lived on New Busan Colony. "Subin, we saw the news about Arirang Station. Are you going to be safe?" Subin looked at her brother's worried face on the screen. He was only 24 years old, a teacher at the colony school. He had never known that his sister's patrol ship was actually a heavily armed combat vessel. "Don't worry about me," Subin replied. "Just take care of your students, and remember what our grandfather always said. A gentle hand can become a strong fist when necessary," her brother recited. It was an old Korean saying their grandfather had taught them as children. Exactly. "I love you, little brother." Engineer Choi Min-ho was not sleeping. He could not sleep. Every minute reports came in about his quantum displacement drives. Some were working perfectly. Others were having minor problems. A few had shut down completely. "Sir, the drive on the battleship Chunmugong is showing instability," reported his assistant. Min-ho studied the technical readouts. "The quantum field is fluctuating. Reduce power by 15% and recalibrate the field generators." 20 years of theoretical work was being put to the ultimate test. If the drives failed during combat, the ships using them would be destroyed instantly. But if they worked, humanity would have an advantage that no enemy could expect. Commander Gethmori reviewed his battle plan for the final time. It was simple and brutal, like all Vorthak military strategy. His 847 ships would advance in 3 waves. The first wave would destroy the human defensive stations. The second wave would eliminate the human fleet. The third wave would attack the colonies directly. "The humans have gathered most of their ships around their central worlds," reported Subcommander Yethkol. "They appear to be using traditional defensive formations." Gethmori smiled with satisfaction. "Traditional formations against a superior force. They will be destroyed in minutes." What the Vorthak did not realize was that the human traditional formations were actually carefully planned positions for a new type of warfare. Every human ship was precisely placed to take advantage of the quantum displacement drives. Dr. Nari was making final adjustments to the Vorthak shield frequency analysis when Kethavar asked her a question that surprised her. "Doctor, why did your people save my life? You knew I was from an enemy fleet." Nari looked up from her work. "Because you were hurt and alone. That's what humans do. We help people who need help." "Even enemies?" "You weren't our enemy when we found you. You were just someone who was dying in space." Kethavar was quiet for a moment. "My people would not have saved a human in the same situation." "I know," Nari said sadly. "That's why we're going to fight." The battle began exactly as Commander Gethmori had planned. The first wave of Vorthak ships moved forward in perfect formation. Their massive hulls gleamed in the starlight. Their weapons charged with deadly energy. Admiral Park watched the enemy advance on his tactical display. "All ships, maintain positions. Wait for my command." The Vorthak first wave reached weapons range and opened fire. Energy beams and plasma missiles crossed space toward the human defensive stations. But something strange happened. Many of the weapons passed through empty space where the sensors showed human ships. Holographic projections, reported Yethkol with surprise. Half of their ships are fake images. Commander Gethmori felt the first stirring of unease. Where are the real ships? The answer came from behind his fleet. 200 human vessels appeared without warning in the middle of the Vorthak formation. They had used the quantum displacement drives to travel instantly across thousands of kilometers of space. Captain Subin's ship Bektu materialized directly behind a Vorthak cruiser. "All weapons, fire at will," she commanded. The human attack was devastating. Appearing suddenly among the enemy ships, they fired at point-blank range. Their weapons had been modified based on Dr. Nari's analysis of Vorthak technology. The energy beams phased through the alien shields as if they did not exist. "Impossible," screamed Commander Gethmori, as he watched 12 of his ships explode in the first 10 seconds of combat. "How are they penetrating our shields?" Engineer Minho monitored the performance of his quantum drives from the command ship Taeguk. The technology was working better than he had dared hope. Human ships were appearing and disappearing throughout the battle zone, striking the Vorthak fleet from unexpected angles. "Sir, the drives are operating at 97% efficiency," reported his assistant. "Only minor problems with 3 units." "Excellent. Send the performance data to all ships. Tell them they can push the drives harder if necessary." The Vorthak second wave tried to respond to the human attack, but they could not target enemies that appeared and disappeared without warning. Their sensors were designed to track ships moving normally through space, not vessels that could teleport. Instantly, Admiral Park coordinated the battle from his flagship, watching as his carefully planned strategy unfolded. Squadron 7 hit their command ship. Squadron 12 target their weapon platforms. The human ships moved like deadly ghosts, appearing long enough to fire their weapons and then vanishing before the enemy could respond. It was a type of warfare the galaxy had never seen before. Commander Gethmori tried to rally his fleet, but the situation was becoming desperate. "All ships, emergency scatter pattern. Get away from the humans before they can target you," but it was too late. The human attack had been too sudden and too coordinated. The Vorthak ships were designed to fight enemies that followed traditional tactics, not opponents who could appear anywhere at any time. Captain Subin's squadron concentrated on the larger Vorthak vessels. Her small patrol ship appeared next to a massive battleship and fired every weapon it carried. The battleship's shields flickered and collapsed as the modified energy beams found their target. "Direct hit on enemy battleship," reported her weapons. "Officer, their shields are down. Continue firing, make sure it can't recover." Dr. Nari watched the battle from the research ship Hanbok, analyzing the effectiveness of her shield frequency modifications. The Vorthak defenses were completely useless against human weapons calibrated to their specific technology. "Your shield generators," she explained to Kethavar, "rotate through different frequencies to make them harder to penetrate. But once we know the pattern, we can match it exactly." Kethavar watched the destruction of his people's fleet with growing horror. "How did you learn to do this?" "We've been studying alien technology for 50 years, Nari replied. "Every crashed ship, every piece of debris, every signal we could intercept. We learned everything we could about potential enemies. The Vorthak third wave never had a chance to form up properly. Human ships appeared throughout their formation before they could organize an attack. The quantum displacement drives allowed perfect coordination across vast distances. Engineer Choi Min-ho's invention was proving to be the decisive factor in the battle. Ships could retreat instantly when damaged, repair themselves, and return to combat within minutes. The Vorthak could not adapt to this new reality. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Kim to Admiral Park, "enemy casualties are approaching 60%. Their formation is completely broken." Park nodded grimly. There was no satisfaction in this slaughter, only necessity. "Continue the attack. We must disable their capability to threaten our colonies." Commander Gethmori realized that his mighty fleet was being destroyed by an enemy he had completely misunderstood. The humans were not weak farmers and scientists. They were warriors who had prepared for this exact battle. "Send a message to all ships," he ordered desperately. "Request immediate withdrawal authority from High Command." "Sir, we cannot contact High Command. The humans are jamming all our communications." The communication jamming was another surprise the Vorthak had not expected. Human ships were broadcasting interference signals that made it impossible for the alien fleet to coordinate their response or call for help. Captain Subin led her squadron in a final attack on the Vorthak command ship. The massive vessel was trying to escape, but the quantum displacement drives allowed the human ships to keep pace easily. The silence after the battle was more terrifying than the fighting had been. Commander Gethmori sat in the damaged command center of his flagship, staring at displays that showed the complete destruction of his fleet. In 14 minutes and 23 seconds, the mighty Vorthak armada had become floating debris and rescue pods. Around him, the few surviving officers worked frantically to understand what had happened. How had 847 warships been defeated so completely by a smaller human force? "Sir," reported Subcommander Yethkol, his voice shaking, "final casualty count shows 812 ships destroyed or disabled, approximately 12,000 survivors out of 400,000 crew." Gethmori closed his four eyes and tried to comprehend the disaster. The Vorthak had conquered 17 species in 3 centuries of expansion. Never had they suffered a defeat like this. Never had they faced an enemy like humanity. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Teguk, watching human rescue ships moving among the wreckage. His fleet had won a complete victory, but there was no celebration. The human crews worked quietly, to save alien lives just as they would save their own people. "Sir, we have Commander Gethmori's surrender request," reported Lieutenant Kim. "Accept it," Park replied, "and tell our medical teams to treat the Vorthak wounded the same as human casualties." Kim looked surprised. "Sir, they just tried to conquer us. They destroyed our Rirang station." Park turned to face his young officer. "That's exactly why we must show them mercy now. Someone has to break the cycle of violence, Kim. It might as well be us." Dr. Nari was working in the expanded medical bay of the Hanbok, treating wounded Vorthak soldiers alongside human doctors. The aliens were confused by this treatment. They had expected to be killed or tortured, not healed by their enemies. Kethvar helped translate between the doctors and patients. His injury was healing well, and he had become an unofficial ambassador between the two species. "Why do you help us?" asked a young Vorthak warrior whose arm had been badly burned. "We came to enslave your people." Nari looked up from bandaging the alien's wound. "Because you're hurt, and we're doctors. That's what we do. But we are enemies. The war is over," Nari said gently. "Now we try to heal the damage it caused." Captain Subin was coordinating the rescue operations when she received an unexpected communication. It was from the Vorthak command ship, where Commander Gethmori was being held under guard. "Captain Lee Subin," the alien commander said, "I request permission to speak with your Admiral Park." "Why?" Gethmori was quiet for a moment. "Because I need to understand what kind of species you are. In 300 years, no conquered enemy has shown mercy to Vorthak survivors." "We're not like other species," Subin replied. "You'll understand that soon enough." Engineer Choi Minho was already thinking about the future as he analyzed data from the quantum displacement drives. The technology had worked perfectly in combat, but its real potential was for peaceful purposes. "Admiral," he reported to Park, "the displacement drives can revolutionize galactic civilization. We can establish instant communication networks, emergency response systems, exploration fleets that can reach anywhere in the galaxy." Park smiled. "That sounds more like the humanity I know. How quickly can we adapt the technology for civilian use? Give me 6 months and I'll have commercial versions ready for testing." The conversation between Admiral Park and Commander Gethmori took place in the conference room of the Teguk. The Vorthak commander was not chained or restrained. He sat across from Park like a guest rather than a prisoner. "I do not understand your species," Gethmori began. "You defeated us completely, but you treat us with kindness. Why?" Park studied the alien commander. Because that's who we are. We fight when we must, but we prefer to heal. The Vorthak way is different. The strong rule, the weak serve. It has always been so. Has it made your people happy? Gethmori considered this question. Happy? We do not think about happiness. We think about power and survival. Maybe that's the problem, Park said quietly. Dr. Nari was documenting her medical findings when she made an important discovery. The Vorthak were not naturally aggressive. Their society had made them that way through centuries of conquest and domination. Kethvar, she asked, what was your homeworld like before the Dominion began expanding? The alien warrior looked confused. I do not know. That was 300 years ago. No one remembers. But you must have stories, legends, art from the old days. Such things are forbidden. The Dominion teaches that only strength matters. Everything else is weakness. Nari felt sad for these people who had forgotten their own peaceful past. Would you like to remember? The negotiations with the surviving Vorthak took 3 days. Admiral Park offered terms that shocked the alien commanders. Instead of demanding tribute or territory, the humans asked only for peace. You may return to your homeworlds, Park announced. Take this message to your leaders. Humanity wants peace, but we are prepared for war. We will defend ourselves and our allies, but we will not seek conquest. Commander Gethmori could not believe what he was hearing. You are releasing us? Without conditions? We have one condition, Park replied. The 17 species you have conquered must be given their freedom. They deserve the same chance at peace that we're giving you. The High Command will never agree to that. Park's expression became very serious. Then the High Command will learn what happened here. Every species in this galaxy will know that the mighty Vorthak fleet was destroyed in 14 minutes. By humans they thought were weak farmers. Engineer Choi Min-ho was making final adjustments to a special version of the quantum displacement drive. This one was designed for communication rather than transportation. It would allow instant messages across any distance. Admiral, the communication array is ready for testing, he reported. Within hours, news of the battle had spread across human space and beyond. The message was simple, but shocking. The peaceful humans had annihilated a massive invasion fleet in minutes, then shown mercy to the survivors. Captain Subin escorted the Vorthak survivors to their transport ships. Commander Gethmori was the last to board. He stopped at the airlock and turned to face her. Captain, my people will remember this day. Some will call for revenge against humanity. And what will you tell them? Subin asked. That revenge against your species would be suicide, and that perhaps there is a better way to live than through conquest. Dr. Nari gave Kethvar a datapad containing information about Vorthak history from before the Dominion. She had found records in the archives of conquered species, stories about a peaceful people who had once lived in harmony with their neighbors. This is who your people used to be, she told him. Maybe they can be that way again. Kethvar looked at the pad with wonder. You are giving me our own history? Everyone deserves to know where they came from. Maybe understanding the past will help build a better future. The news of humanity's victory reached Earth Command within days. The response was swift and decisive. Admiral Park received new orders to establish formal diplomatic relations with all species in the region. It seems, Park told his staff, that we're no longer just defending our colonies, we're becoming galactic peacekeepers. Lieutenant Kim looked excited. Does that mean we'll be exploring beyond human space? It means we'll be helping anyone who asks for help, Park replied, and making sure that what happened to Arirang Station never happens to anyone else. Within weeks, representatives from the 17 species conquered by the Vorthak arrived at human colonies. They had heard about the battle and wanted to meet the people who had defeated their oppressors. Captain Subin found herself hosting a delegation of refugees from the planet Kethvar had mentioned. They were small, peaceful beings who had been slaves for over a century. You really defeated the Vorthak fleet in 14 minutes? Asked their leader. We did, Subin confirmed. But more importantly, we're going to help you reclaim your freedom. Engineer, Choi Min-ho's quantum displacement technology was being shared freely with humanity's new allies. Within months, a network of instant communication and transportation connected dozens of worlds. "Sir," reported his assistant, "the Andromedan Council wants to discuss establishing formal trade relations." Choi smiled. "A year ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we're building a galactic community." Dr. Nari established the first interspecies medical exchange on the former Vorthak colony of Nexus Prime. Doctors from dozens of species worked together to share knowledge and heal the wounds left by centuries of conquest. Kethavar had become her chief assistant, helping to translate medical techniques between different species. His people's history pad had inspired a revolution among young Vorthak who wanted to return to their peaceful roots. "Doctor," he told Nari one day, "my cousin contacted me from the home worlds. The old warriors are losing power. The young ones want to learn from humanity. What do they want to learn? How to be strong without being cruel. How to defend without conquering." Admiral Park received a message that made him smile for the first time in months. It was from the Vorthak High Command, officially requesting a peace treaty and asking for humanity's help in reforming their society.